Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching 2004 Man Pain, Episode 8.
Confidence, man.
Lost, Season 8.
Season 7. Or Season 1. God damn it.
Season 1, Episode 8. This is one that played better when I was, 19.
Oh, I still like it.
What's that like?
Okay, I have such a soft spot for Sawyer.
Sure.
Is the elephant in the room, if we're going to talk about it. This is the kind of man pain I can get behind, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I remember watching it the first time and being like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And this time I'm like...
So, okay, in my opinion, there is one thing that would make it a lot better. And that one thing is if it hadn't... I wish that Kate hadn't found out that he wrote the letter.
Thing that I keep coming back around to is that you want to be hated. This letter wasn't written to you. You wrote this letter.
That just we did?
That we found out. Because
well, she would find out eventually.
That's what I remembered, is that only we knew that he's the one that wrote that letter. I didn't realize that it was someone else knew as well.
Well, it's a Sawyer-centric episode in that he's the flashback story. The plot is that Shannon is having a debilitating anxiety attack. So
plus asthma.
Or asthma, rather. So naturally, the entire episode's about Kate.
Naturally, the episode is about Kate and her pearl-clutching Victorian approach to kissing men.
Well, she stumbles upon Sawyer skinny dipping in the beginning.
Must be cold without your trunks.
You bet. How about you come a little closer and warm me up?
You sure know how to make a girl feel special, Sawyer.
I don't believe he's grinning too hard for that to have been a knock about his dick. Mm-hmm. So, I don't even know what the point of that whole exchange was, except for to set up the kissing later.
Well, we know, if we know one thing, it's that he's coming out of that water hard as a rock.
The cold water of the Pacific Ocean.
Cold never bothered him anyways.
Fuels him hard, more than anything.
No, so because he's this warlord and he's reading Watership Down, which was Boone's book. Because he's been reading Watership Down the whole time.
Has it been the same book the whole time?
Yeah. And I'm sure is that regarded as a good book?
Yeah, it's a classic.
My boss made me watch the movie ages ago, and it was not a good time for me.
It's a parable.
Yeah.
And a metaphor.
It's terrifying.
Run for your lives! All the world will be your enemy.
Because Sawyer goes, it's about bunnies. And I was like, it's not about bunnies.
Yeah, an animal farm is about a farm.
Yeah.
And so because he has...
Allegory. It's not a parable. It's an allegory.
They assume that because he has everything, that he also has Shannon's inhalers. Mm-hmm. And again, it's so close to being a plot for her because apparently she's embarrassed by it. So she's been sneaking
puffs of her inhaler.
And it just it almost amounts as character, but it just doesn't.
Well, especially because Boone very dismissively is it must not be cool to breathe. And I'm like, look, you can be embarrassed by a illness that you have.
I was gonna say it's not cool because it makes her feel weak.
Yeah.
That is interesting. But to reduce it to
to just a punchline for Boone to deliver.
Or to reduce it as a vanity thing. Yeah. I was like, there's more there than what you're saying. And my second favorite part is that throughout the episode, her asthma attack is getting progressively worse, and Jack comes over and starts calming her down. And there's this notion that Boone needs to stay with her. And meanwhile, he's the one whipping her into a frenzy where it's come on, Shannon, breathe, in and out. It's really easy. And she's like... So it's finally when Jack's there, she gets a moment's peace. Because I had asthma when I was a kid, and I know that it's different for different people, and there's all kinds of... There's variables.
Well, you kept stumbling over it, and saying anxiety but she is also having a panic attack. So there is anxiety baked into this as well. And that is when Boone is not helping. When she's already in a frenzy. She already can't breathe. She's choking on air.
And as we've been chronicling, it's like she's been in hard denial up until this point. Yeah. So the plot was there if they wanted to explore it, because it's almost as if them moving to the caves is suddenly when she's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So anyways, they're trying to get the inhalers from Sawyer. I don't understand. This is the man pain. It's because he doesn't have them, and he just won't, because he likes people hating him, and he likes this self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's just I don't know.
He is punishing himself for sure, but I would argue also that he is partially justified in the attitude that he has coming into this, because everybody is it is immediate. Sawyer has these and he is deliberately hoarding medication. We have not seen him hoarding medication. He is hoarding things. But Jack got all the medication on day 2. I don't think he had time to hoard medication. So I think the fact that it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think both sides are self-fulfilling it, because they were gotta be Sawyer. It's the only option, as opposed to it's at the bottom of the ocean with half this plane. And so that's the part where I'm well, you think I'm the villain, I'll be the villain for you.
Well, and I find that interesting. When I introduced this as Man Pain episode, that wasn't only Sawyer, because there's a hefty serving of Sayid and Jack in here as well.
If I'm being perfectly frank, Sayid's man pain is the most irritating to me in this episode. Way the most.
Especially at the end.
Yeah.
That pity speech about how it's I unlocked a part of myself that I swore I would never.
Well, okay, we haven't had a Sayid episode yet, and there is a reason that he made that promise to himself.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's a woman.
Oh, is it Nadia?
Yeah.
And I was just sort of sure, okay, true. However, you're not in the real world. Yeah. These are heightened, extenuating circumstances. Yeah. You were requested to perform abilities in your area of expertise. Yeah. It's just...
So here's the other thing, too, because we did neglect to mention at the end of the previous episode that when they were setting off all the flares and he was then trying to get the transceiver to triangulate the position of where the French woman's signal is coming from, he got bapped on the back of the head really hard and he got knocked out. And so he was trying to also figure that out. And then Locke, I don't think Locke's the one that hit him.
I think it is.
At the minute it was out of my mouth, I was I think Locke's the one that hit him. I don't know.
Because I said that in the previous.
Yeah, I don't remember when we.
You had another theory, which was a valid theory. Yeah. We'll talk about it when we get to it.
Yeah.
But I think it's Locke.
I think you're right. In which case,
and Locke's scene with him was
a very who shit on the coats energy about this.
I heard you were trying to send out a distress call. So it would seem whoever attacked you has a reason for not wanting to get off the island. Maybe someone who is profiting from our current circumstances.
Where he's seems to be.
Do people know what that is? We use it a lot.
It is just in our vernacular.
Is it translating? Let us know. Did you shit on the coats? Okay.
So, he very is well, there's only one person that I can see who doesn't want to get off this island because they're benefiting from it, and that's Sawyer. And so he's no, he has an alibi. He was where he was supposed to be setting off this flare.
Because I would almost say that I think it's out of character for Sayid to get swindled like that if it weren't for the 2004 topical Islamophobia tango that Sawyer and Sayid had been doing. Yeah. So I think it does a decent job justifying Sayid having a blind spot there.
Sure.
He just is so savvy literally everywhere else.
Well, and that's the other thing too is I love all of these assumptions that Locke is making because he's anyone who watches TV knows how to make a long-term whatever with cigarettes. And I was I don't know 5 of the words you just said. So
couldn't have had the time to go from...
Unless he found a way to time delay the fuse on his rocket.
How could he possibly have been...
Anyone who watches television knows how to improvise a slow fuse. Use a cigarette.
I watch so much TV. Like, so much TV. So that was all it was a real all at once kind of an assumption sandwich of everybody being like, well, it was obviously Sawyer who did this, and it was obviously Sawyer who did that. And I think at that point, Sawyer was like, cool, I'll take it.
It was really angsty, and it's like, this isn't quite one of the shows that is an exploration of genre that comes a little bit later into the 2010s and yada yada. However, I just think tonally it's like Sawyer is in a Western, and it's very this thing with him and Kate. It like turns into a slightly different show almost every time.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's a bad show, and I actually think they get better at it.
Well, that's the thing.
But sort of here, I was like, this isn't what I'm watching.
I get what you're saying for sure. I would also, though, argue that I think Josh Holloway carries this off really well. Mm-hmm. I think he does an admirable job of like carrying off this like relatively broad thing. And I think that's something that we should remember is that almost everybody's first flashback episode is quite broad. Like, they're all very like, this is like, you need to know this thing about Kate. You need to know that Kate was an outlaw. You need to know that Jack was a doctor with daddy issues. You need to know that Charlie has a drug problem, and you need to know that Sawyer is a con man. And so it's like, it's a very broad way of getting, but he's like a con man with a heart of gold
because he won't ruin the child's life.
Because he can't steal the money from the child. I'm sorry, those people would have been fine. That house was exquisite. There were so many
she
things
was in
inside.
on it.
Oh, that's right. He was gonna
abandon her as well.
Yeah.
But it would have ruined the marriage because she thought that she was running away with him.
Right.
And she thought they were swindling. Like, it was
the
like,
husband.
It was a con 3 ways deep.
I see. Yes.
So it would have ruined the kid's white picket fence life. Maybe.
I don't know if the mom is stepping out enough to get in 160 large into this fucking situation. I think the white picket fence is a little tarnished already.
Build that home on a foundation of sand.
Yeah. I did want to say that the husband is played by an actor named Michael DeLuise, who, if you watched Gilmore Girls, he is Luke's sister's husband, TJ. And he's so funny.
So it ends with a whole bunch of egg on Sayid's face.
Because they have tortured Sawyer. They've taken him into the woods and tortured him because...
Well, how did Sawyer phrase it when he was like, I got tortured by a doctor or something in a genuine Iraqi? And you were like, they're not mythical.
He's not like a cryptid. He's a real man.
So, yeah, they torture him.
The bamboo shoots up the finger.
There's been moments in the show I've been playing the game in my head where I'm like, I wonder what this would be like on cable. I wonder if it would make it better or worse. And
that would be worse.
Well, I was about to say I'm ultimately indifferent. I think it would have been an interesting TVMA show, but also it's very interesting watching because this is the way TV used to be.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they could do that without us having to witness it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so they do that, and then Sawyer gets loose, and because he basically trades a kiss from Kate for the information, and after she kisses him with a lot of mustard. She could have really pecked her way out of that situation. His hands are not free. He's not clutching her to him. She kept kissing him.
She saw his Western and raised him. Yeah.
And so he gets loose essentially because he's like, I don't have them. Like, no one thought to ask me. I don't have them. And so she goes to tell, and Sayid will not accept it. And so he goes back in with a knife that Locke gave him, so next time he'll be prepared. Next time he gets hit on the back of the head from behind and gets knocked out immediately, he'll be prepared to defend himself. Whatever. So basically, they get into a tussle, and he stabs Sawyer right through the arm, and he nicks the artery. And so he's, like, bleeding out, and Jack's fingers are inside his... I can't. It's horrible.
I was going to say, is it because I wasn't quite paying attention, like, looking, because it was... But... what happens medically? Like, does the artery need to be put back together?
Yes. That's why he asked for his leather bag, because he has the stitches and stuff in there. Yeah.
I forgot we were watching, but there was something where it was a similar thing in the leg.
It's Black Hawk Down.
I've never seen that.
It's disgusting.
So it couldn't have been that for me. But basically, the artery, when it gets like severed, the artery starts to recoil, and they have to pull it back down.
That you are word for word describing what happens in Black Hawk Down. I want to know what you've seen. That's different than that. Because
I feel like it was maybe Alexander.
Maybe whichever one. I don't remember who. I don't remember who it happens to or who is the medic. But whoever it is like elbow deep in the other one's leg, gripping the end of the artery. It's heinous.
Maybe I did see Black Hawk Down.
It's horrible. It's so. Ugh. It's like a pretty good movie, but it's disgusting. So yeah, they get him all stitched up, and that's when Kate confronts him about the letter, and she's like, I thought, because you think that it's a letter that a little boy sent him, but it turns out that his mom got swindled, and then his dad killed his mom and himself because of the swindle. And
once again, there were other issues there than the swindler.
Of course, yes, yeah. I mean, if a swindler is able to make it that far into your marriage, there were problems already.
Well, yeah, into a family annihilation place.
Yeah, I do think we witnessed that at some point.
Yeah, we do.
And I thought it was now, but it's not until later. There is an amazing Sawyer episode with Kim Dickens. She's one of my favorites. And I think he's trying to pull the same job on her. Yeah, it's really good.
So, Son is able to cure Shannon's asthma with Eastern mysticism.
It's called eucalyptus. Because even Jack is kind of kicking himself when he realizes what it is. He's like, oh yeah, dadoy. And I'm like, instead of torturing a man in the woods, something you can't come back from, maybe you should have consulted the world around you.
So so Sawyer left to go make
Sayid
left to go make a map of the island, and
he's basically putting himself in exile.
Claire and Charlie had this really dumb subplot. I remember it being sweet when I watched it the first time, and I was watching it this time. I was like, you can't promise a pregnant, shipwrecked woman peanut butter and then play make pretend.
Especially because and you then can't play pretend while you are luring her. The exchange was real peanut butter, and then you'll move to the caves. If I can supply you with peanut butter, Claire, then you, Claire, will come with me and live in the caves.
If I were him.
Oh, there is one thing. It's extra smooth.
That's okay. It's empty.
He wouldn't have even gotten his fingers into the jar and smacked that thing out of his hands and been like, don't ever talk to me again.
Grab it,
me or my son again.
It is sort of unbelievable that
she's like, oh, you.
At first, she's heartbroken. You can see Emily DeRaven does such a good job. She is devastated at this empty jar.
It's one of those things where you can be like, oh man, I like in hindsight, this is a terrible idea. It seemed like it would be so romantic, but I also wanted to give the hair and makeup a round of applause for making these people beautiful, but also looking like they're on an island.
Of course.
It just, I noticed it in this episode in particular.
I'm having a really hard time with one thing specifically, and it is, what is Kate going to do when her last hair tie breaks? Because that is a fucking mop of hair.
It's like a proper Elsa braid.
It's so great, so much hair. And she's really doing fashion ponies. It's not practical. She's it's very funny.
A fishtail.
I did love, she just every single, because Sawyer tells or asks her to kiss him multiple times, and every time she's like, well, I never. It's so funny.
So, that was that.
Yep.
We're gonna go watch the Sayid episode.
Yeah.
Oh.
Exciting for me. Bye.